Hi, I'm Renee. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome, welcome. I like to bring up my big book so I can have proof that I do have a big book. Huh? There's a misunderstanding. I'm not really from Covina. I'm from God's country, Rancho Cucamonga, California. Huh? You thought you had it going on over here in Ventura, but it's Rancho, baby. Um, It's a pleasure to be here. I got a nice text from Bruce. Hey, we're having dinner at 5:15 at Yolanda's. You want to join us? I said, sure. I could tell Bruce is 40 years plus sober because he didn't tell me he was buying my meal until I already had ordered. Smart man. I would have gone with a 3 combination instead of the 2. But maybe next time. Maybe next time. In all seriousness, I love being sober. I love Alcoholics Anonymous. Many times I like to start, especially with this nice size of the room. How many of us are less than 1 year sober right now? Congratulations, you've begun a wonderful, wonderful journey. My next favorite question, how many of us it took more than 1 time to sober up? 2 times, 5 times, 10 times. Okay. I like to kid around some, but by the grace of God, Monday, I'll have 25 years of continued sobriety. I give the glory to my higher powers. I understand them for in the fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous. But a big part of my story, I was sharing a little bit with Sandy, I believe her name was, at the dinner. I struggled for many, many years to sober up. I like to kid, sometimes I'll be in a meeting and a guy or gal will share all teary-eyed, this is my 3rd time trying to sober up and hopefully I'll make it this time. Well, this is my 84th time of trying to sober up. So hopefully it'll stick this time. Yeah. So if you're like me and you've been bouncing in and out for years and years, maybe even decades, and you're new again or relatively new and you're thinking, man, am I ever going to sober up? There's a lot of corny sayings around here, but they're all true. Don't leave before the miracle happens, because I could have just as easily died drunk as be here creeping up on 25 years of sobriety. So I never want to forget that. So my goal is to spend I drank for about 17 years. So my goal is to share about 17 minutes of qualification and then finally get to the good part, sobriety. When I first started speaking years ago, I was telling Sandy again at dinner, I was a god-awful speaker. If I had like 45 minutes, I'd do like a 39-minute drunk-a-log. And then I read the last 2 minutes. And then I went to a meeting and got sober. I said, wait a minute. I think we all know how to get drunk. I think we're very good at that. But it's important to qualify for myself and for the newcomers and for all of it. I didn't really start drinking till late in life compared to some in AA. I really didn't start drinking until I was 21 years old. I was in the Air Force. I had been restationed to Bellows, Hawaii, on Oahu. Sounds like a wonderful opportunity to do my service. But what had happened, my first duty station was in Texas, Wichita Falls, Texas. And back in Wichita Falls, Texas, I had all kinds of buddies, and we were all young, and are 17, 18, 20 years old. We were all law enforcement. We got to drive around patrol cars, acting like we were real police. Got to pull over the officers' wives and give them tickets. It was just a wonderful, wonderful time. But when I got stationed to Oahu on Bellows Station, I didn't have any friends. It just didn't click. We were in a dorm room type of facility, and there was maybe 12 of us. And I only got along with like one of the guys. We used to play some tennis, real tall guy. And the other 11, I just didn't fit in. They just didn't fit in. Then finally, it must have been like a Friday or Saturday night, they were drinking. And they got some beers or whatever. And I said, hey, Renee, you want to join us? And I said, sure, why not? Up to that point, I had not really ever drinking in my life. And that first night, I drank alcoholically. I drank to blackout. I'm a big blackout drinker. And I remember coming to my room, and walking out the hallway, and everyone's like laughing. And, man, you were like the life of the party, and you're so much fun. And I didn't remember a damn thing. You know, I do remember vaguely that the one friend I had, the tall guy, he was pissed off at me. Apparently, I was making fun of him in my drunken stupor. You know, the one friend I had, I belittled in my drinking. That's what I do when I drink. So after that, I began drinking. I was driving down to Waikiki after work, getting drunk. Only by the grace of God I would make it home, because I'm sure a lot of you have been to Oahu. There's a lot of whiny stuff around those cliffs. God saved me a lot of different times in my drinking hood, because for a minute there I thought, man, maybe I should get a motorcycle. I'll save on the gas. I thought, wait a minute, I think I do it a little bit too much drinking to ride a bike around the island. So I continued to drink, and it became more and more about the drinking. I just wanted to get out of the Air Force. My best buddy from my Texas days had moved to California from Illinois after the service. And he was telling me, man, you got to get here to California. I'm living near Hollywood, and I'm meeting all these kind of gals, and life's just a blast. You should just get out of the service and come join me. So in my drunken stupor, I went to the captain, and I said, hey, I quit. And he said, you can't quit. This is like the military. I go, I don't know. I quit. And by the grace of God, I squeaked out of there with an honorable discharge. Barely, but I got honorable discharge. Ended up back in California. I was born and raised. And moved near Hollywood with my buddy. Turns out he was lying. He wasn't meeting any kind of women, and he was lonely, you know. But my drinking continued. And like I mentioned earlier, I was a big blackout drinker from day one, basically. And I was waiting for my car to be transferred back from Oahu through the military, a bright yellow Trans Am, 20 years old, bright yellow. I mean, I thought I owned the world. Anyway, I was waiting for it to come back, so my dad, who was running for county coroner, deputy county coroner sheriff in San Bernardino, his buddy loaned me his 260, 270, whatever, Z, Datsun. Remember those 260 Datsun Zs, whatever? Real nice sporty car. Anyway, I get drunk in stupor one night, trying to make it back from the bar to my buddy's apartment, get in the blackout. I come to because I had flipped the car somehow. I come to and it's like I got like 4 flat tires. And I said, man, and you know that brilliant alcoholic thinking we had, well, if I can just make it back to the apartment, I can figure it out from there. So I'm going down towards the Hollywood sign. Somehow I make it back. I get out. I remember there's some gal crying in the garage. I think her and her boyfriend were breaking up or something. I don't know what's going on. But anyway, the next morning I come to, I said, well, wow, what do I do? And this is years ago. I'm 63, so this is like back in the early 80s. And so I called this guy who was a cop, and he said, well, you got to call the police department, and you got to call my insurance company. So I called the police department, and this is right in the middle of LA County. They got busier things to do back then, especially. So I think they came like 2 days later, and I gave them some cockamamie story or whatever, and they found out my dad was a cop or what. So they kind of like wrote it all off. And this guy was trying to sell his car that loaned me the car, and he ended up getting like $2,000 more from the insurance company than what he thought he was going to sell it for. So everybody's happy, no harm, no foul. So I continued to drink, but as you can imagine, being a big blackout drinker, these DUIs keep popping up over and freaking over and over. And there was a guy at dinner, Pete, great guy. We were talking a little bit. He asked, hey, when you speak, do you like plan it out? I go, no, man, I'm an alcoholic. We don't plan nothing. He's like, anyway, so I was driving out here, and I remembered some drinking incidents, because right in the middle of my illustrious drinking career, I lived in San Fernando Valley, Mission Hills. You got to go by there to get here from Rancho. I said, oh, yeah, I remember that. I remember those days. vaguely. By the time I was living in Mission Hills, I already had 2 or 3 DUIs and living the life. I was making good money, had a girlfriend I really didn't like. Because my theory when I was drinking is that if you made good money and you had a girlfriend, there's no way you could be an alcoholic. I mean, so it was very important for me back then to make good money and have a girlfriend, regardless if I liked her or not. I had to have someone to fill that slot. So anyway, I'm at a bar in the heart of Mission Hills, getting drunk as usual. I said, man, I better get home. I think I have to work in the morning. So, I probably had to do Caltrans that next morning. But anyway, I'm like in my car, and this car was even an alcoholic car. Because I am a pretty bright guy, especially when I'm drinking. I kept getting these DUIs. And what they would do, they would impound my car. And even back then, it would cost like $800 to get the car out between that and all the fines and everything else. And I said, you know what? I'll buy a $500 car. That way, if they impound it, they can keep the piece of crap. I mean, isn't it great thinking? Huh? So I'm driving home in my $500 orange Vega. And the lights aren't working because it's a $500 car. I remember I had one of those alcoholic dollar cars. I was thinking about it the other day. The steering with the horn, it had popped out, and I'm not mechanical at all. And they had like these loose wires, and every time I would turn, it goes. And I remember driving drunk in this son of a gun, and but at the time, it felt perfectly normal. It was just the price you paid to keep the drunk going. So anyway, I'm driving in my orange Vega, and I guess I pass out, and I bumped into these guys. And it's like 2 in the morning, it's in the middle of Mission Hills, and I'm Mexican, but you in the audience that are Mexican, you can tell I was raised white. It's just what it is. So these 2 guys were speaking to me in Spanish because I just bumped into their car, and they're looking at my ugly orange Vega, and they're thinking, this guy's got no money. So they said, Policia, we call Policia. And I go, wait, man, because I was making good money as a salesperson, I got thousands of dollars in the bank. Tomorrow morning, we'll go to the bank, I'll give you $1,000. Just belligerent. And they're not understanding a word I'm saying. So they keep saying, Policia. And I thought, well, I got my orange Vega, but it hasn't been registered in my name yet. And this is years ago, before computers really caught up with everything. I said, all right, if I can get to my car, get everything out that possibly has my name on it, they'll trace this thing to the previous owner, and it'll get confusing. And so I go to the glove box, and I'm trying to grab everything I possibly can that has my name, my business card, everything. And then I get out, and they were about halfway of this room away from me, and I go, hey, go F yourself. And I literally start running. It was literally a hit and run. I leave my car, I'm running through the backyards of Mission Hills, and I get back to my apartment with a girlfriend I don't like, and she says, what's going on? Because I was sweating profusely. I go, man, I think the cops are after me. She goes, no, they're not. And sure enough, you could start seeing the patrol cars flipping around. So it was 2 days later, it was a Friday night, and I get a call at the office I was working out of, and it was a detective from LA County. And he goes, hey, apparently you were in some kind of incident and blah, 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 blah. I need for you to come in. I go, man, it's Friday at 6. Is it okay if I come in on Monday? He goes, yeah, but if you're a minute late, I'm going to get a warrant on you. It's going to get real ugly. I'll see you on Monday. So I go because I'm a big Dodger fan, me and my girlfriend, and we go to a Dodger game that Friday or Saturday night. I'll never forget this. The Mets were in town, so it was real crowded. We were in lousy seats because of last-second seats. And I'm sitting there thinking, man, what should I do next? I already had 3 or 4 DUIs by that. I go, man, it's probably prison time now. if I don't play this right. I go, should I run? Should I move? I don't know why I thought of Oregon. I don't even like cold places, but I thought of Oregon. Maybe it's punishment. I don't know. So if you're from Oregon, Oregon's a beautiful state. And anyway, I'm saying, I love normal jobs too much where they want like your driver's license and your little ID. I couldn't get away with it. So I show up to the detective's office, and he's looking over his little notes and says, were you drunk that night? And this was like 5 days ago. So what do you think I told him? No, officer, absolutely not. Well, it seemed like you were drunk because you yelled at the guys after you hit them and you flipped them off and you ran. I go, officer, I was scared. He said, it doesn't sound like you were scared to me. I go, when you're scared, you do weird things. You do weird things. So anyhow, I go to the LA County whatever, and I got a hit and run. But thank God it wasn't a DUI. Back then, a hit and run was better for me than a DUI because it would have been like the 4th in 2 years or some crap. Even back then, they probably would have been talking prison time. And I'm just not a prison type of guy. There's guys that can do prison really well, but I'm not one of them. I'm not one of them. So, but I was serving some Caltrans out in Riverside County when I was out there. I was like on probation at the time, probably with 3 different counties. It was like, the tri-county thing. I was on probation in each one. Anyway, so I was doing Caltrans again in Riverside County. By this time, because I was so scared of going to jail, I would get my lawyer to give me Caltrans. I think one sentence was like 168 days of Caltrans. And so every weekend I would show up half hungover to do my Caltrans. And I just couldn't do it. I barely like working for money. I was just tired of working for free. I just couldn't do it. And I said, okay, what I'll do, I'll go to LA County, tighten up that sentence. I'll go back to the judge in Riverside County and just say, Your Honor, just put me in. I want to do straight time, get it over with. So I arranged to do all that, but backtracking a little bit, you know how the LA County detective tracked me down? Remember I said I was trying to pull out everything to have my name on it. The one slip that slept between the seats somewhere was from Riverside County Jail telling me where to report for my weekends. Have my name, It didn't take a whole lot of detective work to figure it out. So anyway, I owed like Riverside County this 168 days. I picked up another 30 days in LA County, and I put all my stuff in storage, and I said, all right, I'm going to go to LA County, and then when that's over, I'll finish it up out here at that work farm, whatever they got. I think it's still around. Anyway, something like one of those. Anyway, I go to the judge in Riverside County, and I turn myself in. And what had happened, this is years ago, before computers you can't beat computers. I wouldn't want to be a young drunk nowadays. The damn computers will get you. Anyway, there was a fire, and they lost all their records. And so the judge is saying, hey, as you know, there was a recent incident. We lost all the records. I don't know how much time you owe us, but if you lie, I'm going to give you at least a year. And if you lie and I find out, I'm going to give you a year. So, as an active alcoholic, you got to really think on your feet sometimes. I go, well, and I owed him like this 168 days. I know if I said like 3 days, he'd probably say, you're lying to me. So I said, 68 days, Your Honor, and he went with it. So I shaved off 100 days. But I go to do my Riverside County jail time. And like I said, I'm not a prison guy. I'm just not. But I am. They were so overcrowded, they put my group into prison out in the desert somewhere. I forget the name of it now. But so there I am in literally prison. And I'm thinking, how did a nice guy like me, that just likes to drink a little bit, literally end up in prison? So right out of the big book where it says we start thinking, well, maybe I do this, maybe I do that, I finally got honest with myself when I'm sitting there literally in prison and said, man, is it my drinking? I go, no, it's just the way that I drink. That's the problem. So I said, well, I'll get in shape while I'm here in prison. So I started like running the track until one day one of the harder core guys is like whistling at me. I said, well, I think I'm done with my running days, at least when I'm in prison. And so anyway, that finally passes, and I do my time in LA County, get out of there. I still wasn't done. You know, when I was sitting in jail those days, I was thinking, man, I got to be smarter when I go out there. I even thought about it when we were at the restaurant. I saw an old RV. Remember the old Winnebagos? Okay, I don't know if they're still around under Winnebago, but it was like an RV for some of your younger folks. So when I was sitting in prison, I said, you know what? They always get me driving home drunk from these dive bars. So I had a little money saved. So I said, when I get out of here, I'm going to buy me a Winnebago. And what I'll do, I'll go to whatever dive bar it is for the night, park my little Winnebago, go get drunk in a blackout, stumble to my Winnebago, sleep it off. I thought it was a brilliant plan. I thought it was really. I said, my father said, no, all that means is I'll get a DUI driving a Winnebago. Yeah. So I bounced in and out of AA for several years. What finally happened, a little over 25 years ago, I was dry again. I was about 60 days dry, I don't remember. And I was having a bad day. My girlfriend pissed me off. She's my wife now. I was driving one of my $500 alcoholic cars. I hated my boss because I'm self-employed. I mean, everything sucked. Everything sucked this particular day. And I said, screw it. I've been around AA literally 17 years by then. I'm done. I love some of those guys and gals, but apparently I'm going to die drunk. And so I got back to my condo. Had a condo in Huntington Beach. Was a gift of my almost getting sober in and out of the program. And I lied to my girlfriend and said, hey, I'm going to go to the condo for a few days, and I got this test coming up. I'm going to really focus on this test. I'll call you on Monday. And so I knew I was going to get drunk. So to this day, I had my most sincere prayer ever. I prayed to God. I said, God, you know what? I'm going to get drunk. I want to get drunk. I ain't calling anybody. I'm getting drunk. Can I please have one good last year of enjoyable drinking? No DUIs, no lost jobs, no accidents in my $500 car, nothing. I just want it like it used to be, where it's just a lot of fun, maybe a little trouble, but mainly just a lot of. I was chasing those giggles in the bottle one last time. So what I used to do when I hadn't drinking for a while, I would get like a 6-pack, maybe a case of beer, and I would get what I really wanted, like a bottle of vodka or a bottle of tequila, because I knew I wanted to get to the bottle of tequila pretty darn quick. But I knew I had to loosen up to, this is my thinking about it, had to loosen up the joints. It's been a while, almost like I was doing a workout. I'll do some stretching with some Coors Light, and then, and so I opened up the first can of beer, and before I even drank, I said, oh, man, I got to use the restroom. So I went to my condo. This is Huntington Beach. I went to my condo and I used the restroom, and the toilet backed up. And I remember thinking before I even drank, I go, man, I haven't even picked up the real drink yet, and the crap's already happening. Literally. But once I pick up the first drink, I ain't done. I mean, it's on. It is on. I don't care about whatever. So I drink the first drink, but I warn you, if you're bouncing in and out of AA and you're not sure you want to stick around, run. Don't look back, run, because Alcoholics Anonymous will screw up your drinking. It'll screw up your drinking. So I do the first drink, and I don't feel any relief. For the first time in my drinking career, there wasn't that, I'm back home. It was like, man, you're a piece of crap. You don't have to live this way. You're a loser. So, but once I pick up that first drink, I'm not gonna. Oh, I had one drink. I'm gonna go back to AA. No, I'm going for a nice drunk. So, but I got a little smarter. I said, okay, if I don't drive my car, I can't get a DUI. It's math. So I leave the car. I walk down to right off of PCH in Huntington Beach, the bars they have off of Main Street. I go to the bar and try to meet some gals, not having any fun. I just don't belong there anymore. And I come to back in the drunk tank. Surprise, surprise. And I remember coming to the drunk tank saying, God, this is not my prayer. This is not fun. I want fun. This is not fun. So I get my citation, and by this time I had 6 or 7 DUI. I'm a believer in etiquette. Once you have more than 2 or 3 DUIs, it's rude to count. Quit counting your DUIs. Quit counting them. But I had several. And I had numerous drunken publics, lost jobs. So I had spent a lot of time in these drunk tanks over the years, coming to. And I come to one more time, and they released me, and it was the most humiliating drunk I ever had. And I had some doozers, because I read the citation they give you, when you go to court. And I read in it, and it says, no court appearance needed, detained for his own protection. I thought, man, I'm not even worth arresting anymore. This is like a whole new category. I mean, what? You remember Andy Griffith's show? I said, man, all I am is Otis. All I am is a sloppy local drunk. Let's put him in jail so he doesn't hurt anyone else or himself. And so I'm walking down the street trying to figure out how to get back to my condo. I go, I do a turn left or turn right. I think it's right. So I start walking down the street, and the first time in my whole drinking career, bouncing in and out of AA for 17 plus years, the word enough popped in my head. I go, enough? What the hell does enough mean? I was finally sick and tired of being sick and tired. The guy that was my main sponsor back then, what I used to do, because, being the brilliant drunk that I was, I come to AA quite a bit during those 17 years. And if I went and got drunk, what I would do is come back and fire my sponsor. Apparently, this guy's not telling me the right stuff. He doesn't. I need to find somebody a little more on the ball here. And this guy, I finally realized, well, maybe it's me. I went to the Alano Club, and they have the big meeting, and then they have the small meeting. I went to the small meeting early. There's 6 guys already there, and each one of them had been my sponsor at one time or another. And they were all still sober. I go, wait, they're still sober. I'm the new guy again. Maybe. I don't want to make any assumptions here, but maybe it's me. Maybe it's me. So I'm walking down, and I get the word enough. My buddy, one of my main sponsors back then, Tom H., he never gave up on me. He had a tougher story than I did. He had a crazy story, crazier than mine. But he always loved me, always tried to help. But by then, he wasn't my sponsor because I had to fire him. But he still kept trying to work with me. He paged me. Back then, we didn't have cell phones. Remember those pagers where they would call in and they'd say, Tom H. wants you to call him. And I remember thinking, should I call this guy? And if I do, should I tell the truth? I'll go, screw it. I'll tell the truth. And I go, Tom, I call him. I go, Tom, do you know where I just got out of, what, jail again? I mean, he knew me because he was the kind of drunk I was. I go, yeah. No more preaching, because by then Tom had been trying to help me sober up for over 10 years. He said, you might want to get to one of those AA meetings. That's all he said. He said, you just might want to get to one of those AA meetings. But this time I was totally defeated. I liked the kid, but there's a lot of seriousness in it. It took me literally hundreds, thousands of AA meetings to get to that first meeting of surrender, to get there totally surrendered. I no longer had the solution. I was reading something right out of the big book, stuck out to me it said there can be no reservations that I can drink like a normal man. I finally got to that point. I didn't know it at the time. I mean, most of us don't realize, wow, I just had my last day of drinking. I mean, we don't know for months, sometimes years, like, wow, I really am not drinking. So I had that moment of clarity, that moment of surrender. I stumbled into my next meeting the next morning, I think it was, totally surrendered, totally humbled. When I was bouncing in and out for those 17 years, when I'd come back around, I was trying to stay sober forever. I finally realized the Big Book was not kidding when it said, what we have is a daily reprieve contingent on our spiritual condition. That never changes. 2 days away from 25 years or 2 days away from 25 days, it's the same equation. It's based on my spiritual condition, my conscious contact with God as I understand Him. So, by the grace of God, what happened to me, because even after I got sober, I was one of those, I never had any kids of my own. So I can be incredibly self-centered and selfish. I know you find it hard to believe, but ask my wife, she'll verify it. But for 16 years of being around this program, 15, 16 years, I was trying to take as much as I possibly could and give as little back as I could. So what that did, it painted me into a corner. Right around the 15, 16-year mark, I was acting out in other compulsions. Non-alcoholic or drug, but they were nearly as bad. I didn't tend to get locked up over them, but nearly as bad. Spiritually demoralizing. I had like a night of that type of compulsion, and I ended up in the Alana Club in Pomona, one of those alkathon type of things. So it's meeting after meeting, just like a newcomer again, because I was coming off of my new compulsion. And one of the guys that spoke was talking about hospitals and institutions and speaking, and he was on fire, and he seemed like to be really enjoying his life, comfortable in his own skin. I didn't have a sponsor at the time. Maybe that was part of the dryness. I don't know. Maybe a clue again. Maybe a clue. And so I meet him, and I say, hey, thanks for your talk. And I used to do H&I when I first came around, and maybe I'll do it again. And I walked to the car, and I think, whenever I get this voice, I know it's my higher power. My higher power said, you better turn your ass around and ask that guy to be your sponsor, because you may never see him again. So I went and asked him. His name's Fernando. He spoke here a few weeks ago. Great guy, very involved in H&I. That's how I get to speak once in a while. He sends in the B team. I'm the B team. But what's really important, I get to do hospitals and institutions every month. Every month. I was the facilitator, whatever you call it, secretary for one of the American Recovery Centers in Pomona on Saturdays at 10 a.m. But my sponsor's trying to get a speaker meeting going on, so he needed me to temporarily have him do that one. And so I'm doing, I call it TDY, like they do in the military, temporary duty assignment. I'm doing the detox panel. I do it next Sunday. It's my least favorite panel. They don't seem to laugh at my jokes. Maybe it's because they're all drugged up, wondering if they're going to jail, Now, come on, guys, just fake it. I'll get you more drugs if you'd laugh at my stuff. So it's not a lot of fun in that sense. But it's very rewarding because usually 5 or 6 people, pretty bad bottom. One might actually show some like they're listening, And at the very least, when you leave that puppy, you are grateful just to be sober. Screw whatever. Okay, thank you. So I highly recommend if you're kind of flat in your program and you just don't feel like you have the same juice you did a few years ago or even a few months ago, look into hospitals and institutions. I know they got them out here. It's a wonderful service. It's just a wonderful way of life. I'm 63 years old, and I got an interesting barbecue coming up next Saturday. I'm just inviting a lot of people that have been important in my sobriety, a lot of different Eskimos through the years, and one gal, she said she's going to be there. Her name is Martha. I remember when it was first coming around, Because Martha used to say these brilliant spiritual things in meetings. She was like 20 years sober at the time, and she sounds so spiritual and so brilliant. I said, man, I don't know how she does it. Then I finally read the book. She was just sharing right out of the book. Oh, that's the trick. The book. So I'm happily married to that gal. We're very strong in our faith. I got two stepsons. One's 37, sharp kid, works with us. I actually make a little money on him. It's a real good deal. However, God's got a sense of humor. We got the other 43-year-old living with us. He's a drunk. Still hasn't surrendered. So I kind of lose money with him. So it works out. A little money here. Lost money here. It's like even. Like even. But, it's a sad situation. And I was sharing with Sandy, and I'm praying that he hits his bottom. But as alcoholics, when we pray, at least I still trying to connive with God. God, I pray that he hits his bottom. But please don't make it too tragic. Because his mom would be really hurt, but he needs to hit a bottom. The sad part, when you get a little older and you got some sobriety, you get stronger and stronger opinions on things, a little more rigid. Because it's my belief, you ain't done until you're done. At least that's how it was for me. All those years, the court system, the temporary sponsor, the fellowship, man, like I was telling at dinner, all those years of bouncing out, AA has a wonderful way of taking care of those that struggle like I did for so many years. Because every time I came back, I would just have the right amount of unconditional love and the tough love. I'd get the guy that, hey, you just got out of jail again because you got drunk again. Let me go buy you a nice steak dinner and let's talk about it. Then I get the crusty old timer come up in my face. You're going to die drunk, don't you know? You're going to die. You're dying. Do you realize that? I needed both. I needed the unconditional love, and I needed the tough love. And I'll end with this, because when I was struggling all those years, I was going to meeting after meeting after meeting. I went to this one meeting in San Bernardino. It was a funny meeting because right across the street they had a liquor store that said "Last Chance Liquor." Like, hey, this is your last chance before you go to that meeting. But anyway, this guy gets up and he starts sharing. He's crying because he lost his girlfriend. He went to jail, lost his job. He's all beat up. And life sucks. But he's got his one day. This old timer shares next. He says, you know what? We don't have to lose our jobs. We don't have to get beat up. We don't have to go to jail to get sober. But it helps. It helps. I was one of those kind of guys. I needed that kind of help. And I'm forever grateful for these kind of groups, and the Fellowship of Alcoholics Anonymous is such a big part of my spiritual journey. It's my homeroom. And that's all I got. Thanks for letting me share.